When a pope goes to his eternal reward or otherwise retires, there are certain traditions that are dusted off each time to elect his successor. Only the British royal family can rival the Vatican when it comes to seemingly ancient and elaborate rituals, so you know it's going to be a big production. For those of you who grew up eating meat on Fridays and not caring if your soul was in a state of mortal sin, let's break down the pope picking process. It should first be noted that the exact rules regarding the election of a new pope have been tweaked numerous times over the centuries. At one point, it was even common to do things like deprive the cardinals of pay, rooms of their own, and anything but bread and water if they were taking too long. The roof over the cardinals' heads was even removed during the 1269 election to try and entice them to speed things up a bit. But in general, immediately following the death of the pope, all the cardinals called to Rome by the College of Cardinals, which has jurisdiction over the church until a new successor of St. Peter is chosen. The cardinals, who are the guys who get to wear those snazzy red robes and cool hats, but are otherwise just bishops with some extra responsibilities, gather for a conclave which entails them all being locked in an area of the Vatican until they elect a new pope. Before this, however, the cardinals attend what are called general congregations, where the current state of the church and the best qualities for a new pontiff are discussed prior to any voting. About 2 to 3 weeks later, it's time for the actual conclave, the word coming from the Latin cum clave, or with the key, as in locked with a key. This seclusion was originally instituted to combat the prevalent practice of various political entities trying to influence the vote. After everyone hears Mass, during which the help of the Holy Spirit is sought in choosing a new pope, the Cardinal Dean presides over the preliminaries, which includes going over any proceedings that will touch on canon law. Then all the cardinals are locked away, where they will go through potentially several rounds of voting until a new pope is elected. Only cardinals under the age of 80 are allowed to participate, and all swear an oath of absolute secrecy before the doors are sealed behind them. To assist in the process, 9 cardinals are chosen randomly, 3 that will act as voting judges, also known as scrutineers, 3 that will collect the absentee ballots of cardinals too sick to attend, and finally 3 revisers who double-check the work of the scrutineers. In general, a 2/3 majority was a requirement for a candidate to take the election. Pope John Paul II changed this rule in 1996, so if after 33 votes a clear winner is still not apparent, a simple majority is enough to pick a winner in the following vote. Of course, with this method, a simple majority on round 1 of voting, followed by the cardinals in question not changing their votes for the subsequent rounds, meant that the previous absolute majority would never be needed. Needless to say, this rule didn't last and was rescinded by Pope Benedict XVI in 2007, which brought us back to the 2/3 majority. For each round of voting, the cardinals are given cards with the words "Eligo in summum pontificem," I act as supreme pontiff, on them. Each man jots down his choice, folds the card twice, and then, by order of seniority, casts their ballots in a chalice by Michelangelo's The Last Judgment, while saying, "I call as my witness Christ the Lord, who will be my judge, that my vote is given to the one who, before God, I think should be elected." Technically, the cardinals can elect whoever they see fit, provided the candidate is a male that has been baptized. There actually have been times when laymen were elected to the Catholic Church's highest office, but that hasn't happened in over 500 years. When it did occur, the Pope-to-be had to be immediately ordained, first as a priest and then as a bishop. In practice, it's virtually always a cardinal who is raised to the position of pope, though. When all the ballots are cast, the receptacle holding them is given a good shake to mix the contents up. A scrutineer then puts the ballots in a new container and counts them to ensure the number of ballots match up with the number of voting cardinals. The ballots are counted out aloud, and the results are noted by the 3 cardinal scrutineers designated for that purpose. Each ballot is then poked with a needle and hung from a thread, securing them in one place prior to burning. Traditionally, ballots were burned dry to create white smoke and with damp straw to create black, but one time too many, the faithful were confused by inconclusive greyish smoke. So now, after each round of voting, ballots are burned using chemicals to either create black smoke, no pope, or white smoke, new pope. These days, bells are also rung when the new pope is elected, just to make it perfectly clear. When a new pope is finally elected, the pope-elect is asked if he accepts the honor. If he's cool with it, he immediately becomes pope and bishop of Rome to boot. Then, one by one, the cardinals all pledge their love and support to the new pontiff, who then chooses what name he will go by as pope. Once that is established, the new pontiff's name is announced to the throngs of people awaiting the news outside and the entire world. Everyone cheers and sings, and things soon go back to business as usual until the next time the Grim Reaper shows up, or very rarely rarely the Pope simply steps down, such as what happened in 2013 when Pope Benedict XVI resigned, citing poor health. To give you an idea of just how rare this is, the last Pope to do so was all the way back in 1415 when Pope Gregory XII stepped down, though not exactly of his own volition. The last to step down without outside pressure was Pope Celestine V, who did so in 1294. And now for a bonus fact. Speaking of popes, it turns out one of them wrote a popular romance novel called The Tale of Two Lovers. Pope Pius II was born in Silvio Piccolomini near Siena, Italy in 1405, one of 18 children. His family was part of Italian aristocracy, but they'd fallen into poverty. Once the future pope was old enough, he went to university and then began work as a teacher before becoming a secretary to Cardinal Domenico Capranica in 1431. He was later a follower of the anti-pope Felix V and was excommunicated for siding with a man who went against the real pope's wishes. Back then, the future Pope Pius II was part of a group that is today known as the Renaissance Humanists. He also fathered illegitimate children and wrote erotic literature and obscene poetry. Shortly after one of his illegitimate children died, he joined the court of Emperor Frederick III as an imperial poet and private secretary to the emperor in 1442. 2 years later, the future pope wrote The Tale of Two Lovers. Historians believe he might have written other books and manuscripts with similar subject matter, and in addition to the novel, a romantic comedy has also been attributed to him. Whatever the case, The Tale of Two Lovers is about a man who falls in love with a married woman. The two exchange letters, and their correspondence makes up the bulk of the book, making it one of the first examples of an epistolary novel. As an example of the type of content within the book, Pius wrote, "Now Sigismund, though advanced in years, was quick to passion. He took great pleasure in the company of women and loved feminine caresses. Indeed, he liked nothing better than the presence of great ladies. So when he saw these, he leaped from his horse, and they received him with outstretched hands. Then, turning to his companions, he said, 'Have you ever seen women like these? For my part, I cannot say whether their faces are human or angelic. Surely they are from heaven.'" In his later years, Pius II looked back on his past with some regret. Writing to a friend, he said, "I know what you will say. Why, how straight-laced Aeneas is. Now he writes to me of chastity from Vienna, but in Neustadt he spoke otherwise. I don't deny it, dearest John, but time slips away day by day. We are older. The day of our death draws near, and now we must consider not how to live, but how to die. For me, John, I have sinned enough, and too much. Now I know myself, and may it not be too late. For now I am 40, and the day of salvation, the time for repentance, is at hand." Pius II attempted to suppress The Tale of Two Lovers, not wanting the transgressions of his pre-pope days to catch up with him, but the book proved to be too popular. Now, if at this point you're wondering how someone with a background frowned upon within the Catholic Church made it all the way to its highest office, well, Pius II made his way from synod to pontificate through a remarkably rapid set of promotions. These were partially the result of the fact that he was well liked among his peers and also genuinely excelled at the tasks given to him, despite his perhaps less than ideal morals by the Church's standards. His rapid rise began after being made a representative in Frankfurt. After breaking off his friendship with the anti-pope in 1445, he was absolved of his excommunication. In 1446, he was ordained as a priest. He then helped to resolve issues between the German princes and the Pope, and for his efforts he was made a bishop in 1447. Thanks partially to a recommendation from his former employer, Emperor Frederick III, a little over a decade after the removal of his excommunication, he was made a cardinal. So this leads us to his next jump, to Pope. According to Pius II himself, after the death of his predecessor, the man who was the favorite for the position of Pope was a cardinal named de Oosterweel, who was of exceptional character. However, Pius II felt that he'd do a better job than de Oosterweel in the position of Pope. He also felt that it would be an easy enough task to improve upon his own personal character to match that of de Oosterweel's, which would be necessary if he was chosen. He set about attempting to convince the other cardinals of these things and was elected unanimously in a second ballot, taking the position of Pope in 1458. While he was Pope, his attention was focused on developing a crusade against the Turks who had invaded Constantinople. He even went so far as to implore King Mehmed II to convert from Islam to Christianity. This effort ultimately failed. As morale waned with the Crusaders, Pope Pius II traveled to join them, but ended up falling ill and dying shortly thereafter on August 14th, 1464. Because he spent most of his time as Pope waging war against the Turks, little of note was accomplished during his papacy, but his memory lives on in his writing, both The Tale of Two Lovers and other less erotic literature that defined him and the time period in which he lived. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe. and I'll see you next time.